I want you to close your eyes and picture this scene for me. You're driving along with one of your friends in the passenger seat, blasting your favorite music, singing along, whatever you like to do in the car, and you look down and you notice that your friend isn't wearing their seatbelt. You ask them, hey, can you maybe buckle up your seatbelt for me? And they say, well, nothing bad has happened to me yet and I never wear it, so what's the point? You argue for a little bit and you realize that you weren't paying attention to the road. You're going too fast to stop at the red light. There's a car in front of you and you rear end it. Your friend slams their head into the windshield, breaks the windshield, and they're ejected out of the car. Now you might have a few bumps and bruises, maybe a mild concussion, but your friend who wasn't wearing their seatbelt, safe to say you're going to be attending their funeral this weekend. You can open your eyes now. You might not realize the consequences, or maybe you do, and you're trying to convince other people to wear their seatbelts. I have always been an advocate for wearing your seatbelt. I knew somebody personally who was killed in a car accident because they were ejected, and they would have survived the accident had they been wearing their seatbelt. So ever since then, I've always been a huge advocate, wanting people to wear them and just teaching people the danger of not wearing their seatbelt. So you should always be wearing a seatbelt every single time you step into a car. Today I will cover why you should wear your seatbelt, how you can remember to wear your seatbelt, how easy it is to wear your seatbelt, and how great and wonderful your life will be once you wear your seatbelt. Now that I have your attention, let's dive into the point at hand. Not wearing your seatbelt increases the chances that you will be ejected from a car during a crash. According to the Center for Disease Control's article, Policy Impacts Seatbelts, people not wearing a seatbelt are 30 times more likely to be ejected from a vehicle during a crash. More than 3 out of 4 people who are ejected from a fatal crash end up dying from their injuries. Being ejected from a car during a car accident means that you will sustain more fatal injuries than if you were able to stay inside of the car during the accident. Due to the sheer force of the impact, most injuries sustained will be fatal, and these usually include spinal cord injuries, traumatic brain injuries, organ failure, internal bleeding, broken bones, such severe pain that you just end up dying. And these are much more likely to happen if you are ejected. So as you can see, these are the legs of a person who was ejected. They wouldn't have sustained these injuries if they weren't ejected out of the car. And this is the skull of a person who was also ejected out of the car. Their face ended up smashing into the pavement, and that is what caused all these fractures. Now, if they were wearing their seatbelts, they wouldn't have been ejected out of the car, and they wouldn't have had such traumatic injuries. They might have had a better chance of survival. What wearing a seatbelt changes how likely you are to die in a car accident. If you don't wear your seatbelt, you are 30 times more likely to die in a car accident than if you just remember to buckle up your seatbelt. As you can see on this table provided by the United States Department of Transportation's National Highway and Traffic Safety Administration's statistical report, Traffic Safety Facts, the amount of fatalities was significantly lowered when the people in the vehicle were restrained with a seatbelt. In fact, among fatally injured passenger vehicle occupants, more than half, or 53%, of those killed were unrestrained. Almost 2/3, 62%, of those killed during the night were unrestrained car accidents, and this is compared to the only 44% who were killed during the night while they were restrained. When compared to the drivers killed while unrestrained, there is an 18% difference. That 18% difference can make the difference of whether or not you survive a car accident. If you don't wear your seatbelt, the chances of you being killed in a non-fatal crash rise to over 50%. And that's just not buckling up at all. Let's say you don't get into a car accident this time. You are 18 times more likely to die in the next car accident you come into. Your death can easily be avoided completely if you just wear your seatbelt. And along with lowering your chances of dying due to a crash, there are a couple of other consequences. Another reason why you should wear your seatbelt is because you can get a ticket and you will be fined a large sum of money. You can also be charged with vehicular manslaughter if a passenger dies while in the car with you and they aren't wearing their seatbelt. According to the Idaho Transportation Department's article, Highway Safety, adult violators 18 and older are subject to a $10 citation. However, since most of you guys, or pretty much anybody watching this right now, is under 18, if the driver is younger than 18 and the driver or any occupant that is younger than 18, so that includes your friends, fails to wear a seatbelt, the court costs are added to the fine. This means that $10 plus the court costs will total up to $51.50. Think of everything that you can get with $51.50. How much food you could buy, how much Red Bull you could drink, how much you could get gas with that money, literally anything that you want to persuade you just to wear your seatbelt. This fine will be completely avoided if you just end up buckling up. However, you can completely eliminate the chances of even getting a ticket in the first place if you just buckle your seatbelt when you get in the car and you don't even have to worry about it. Another reason you should wear your seatbelt is because you can be charged with vehicular manslaughter if your passenger dies or is seriously injured in the car. So let's say you have your friend in the car with you in the scenario from before, and when they get ejected out of the car, since they weren't wearing their seatbelt, they're going to die from their injuries. Well, you can be charged with vehicular manslaughter. So according to einhornlawyers.com's article, drivers can be jailed if your passengers don't wear seatbelts. A driver's failure to have his passengers wear a seatbelt could result in a jail sentence to the driver if the passenger is either killed or seriously injured. They are also explained that if there is a death, the driver can face up to 10 years in prison, and if there is significant or serious injury, the driver can be jailed from 3 to 5 years. All of this can be completely avoided if you just wear your seatbelt and enforce it in your car. You won't even have to worry about the possibility of going to jail for 5 to 10 years if you just remember to buckle up your seatbelt and remember to tell your friends to buckle their seatbelt as well. Don't worry about hurting your friends' feeling when you tell them to buckle up, but instead you should be worrying about their life. If you enforce wearing a seatbelt, then you will avoid the death of your passenger, you won't have to be charged with their death, and you won't have to live with the guilt of possibly indirectly killing another person. Now that you know the risks involved with not wearing your seatbelt, let me help things click into place and look at the solution to your problems. Just wear your seatbelt. You buckle up and save a life. Use a little bit of common sense and make sure that you buckle your seatbelt before you drive. You can even do little things to help you remember. According to WilliamMatters.com's article, 5 Ways to Remember to Buckle Up, make a reminder on your steering wheel that you will see every single time you step into the car. It'll help you remember to buckle your seatbelt. This can be anything from a handwritten note to even just a little ribbon tied around the center of your steering wheel. Something that you will see and it will remind you that you need to buckle your seatbelt. This is one of the most common and effective ways to buckle your seatbelt. You can also have someone remind you before you leave. Also, every single car has an alarm that beeps when you or your passenger don't wear their seatbelt. So next time, instead of just tuning out that annoying beeping noise, listen to it really and make sure that it really helps you remember to buckle your seatbelt. Finally, you can make it into a game to see who can buckle up the fastest. This method is effective if you're transporting children who don't necessarily like to buckle up their seatbelts. Make it into a competition and maybe have some suckers or some candy to give to them at the end, to whoever buckles up the fastest. It'll encourage them to buckle. No matter how you choose to remember, just make sure that you are buckling your seatbelt every single time you get into the car. Now you may be thinking, the trip is just around the corner, or maybe it's just down the block, and it's too short to have to worry about a seatbelt. But don't forget that accidents can happen anywhere, anytime. They can even happen to you while you're parked. The seatbelt should always be a priority when getting into a car. There is always a chance of an accident, and there's always a chance of a death too. So you have, and as you heard before, you have a significantly higher chance of dying in a car accident if you don't buckle your seatbelt. You even if your friends or your family don't wear their seatbelts, you should too. You should already wear your seatbelt. Sorry. Wearing a seatbelt is your responsibility, not anybody else's, and your life is in your hands. So remember the consequences of others not wearing their seatbelts and remind your friends and family every single time they choose not to wear theirs. Now that you know the solution to your problem, let us cruise into the benefits and consequences. First, imagine being able to drive free of concern that you or a passenger will be ejected from a car and die in a fatal car accident. You also imagine not feeling responsible for the death of a friend or family member afterwards if they didn't wear a seatbelt in your car. And finally, you will feel better knowing that you won't have a chance of getting a fine or being charged with vehicular manslaughter since people in your car are buckling up. It is now time for us to park and to come to a close. Overall, the benefits of wearing a seatbelt far outweigh any kind of disadvantage that you can think of. Today I have covered why you should wear a seatbelt, how easy it is to wear a seatbelt, and how happy your life will be if you just buckle up. Now I'm going to ask you to close your eyes one more time for me. I want you to visualize that same scene from the beginning. You and your friend are sitting in the seats, you guys are blasting your favorite songs, and you're having a good time. And the difference, your friend is now wearing their seatbelt. So instead of arguing and your friend consequently dying in the car accident, you guys are both safe and you get to your destination fine. I want you to open your eyes and now look around at your family. Imagine your life without them and think of that next time you choose not to wear your seatbelt. So please buckle up and save a life. Thank you.